Okay, guys, we're back. And now we're here about Clarus with Jay and the Decentralized Curation.
I'm the developer at Keros, and I talk about decentralized curation. So you can remember. What is curation? Well, let's see what this is for. So it's essentially a list that satisfies a particular criteria. So you will have a list that satisfies that the items in the list are a particular rock band. And then you could add another list on top of this. Good rock band, legendary rock band. You could have all sorts of lists which are sorted by a particular score. You could have ordered lists without a score. Combinations like a basket of items. Sort of linked lists. And well, curation actually, despite the fancy word, has been done since the beginning of the internet. The first probably websites were just a curated list of links before Google. And of course, your social media feed is curation. So curated lists are actually a very interesting building block for crypto-economic systems. You need some proper incentives to add an item to a list and to challenge an item or to remove an item from a list. You also can have composability properties, because you can actually have integration of other protocols either on the content production side or on the content consumption side. And if you store the content of your list either on-chain or some immutable storage, you can guarantee the integrity of the content. Why decentralized? In the old Web2 world, control is considered as an asset, but usually encrypted reliability, as Vitalik said, and well, not actually controlling the contents of what's on the list, for example, has some interesting properties. That means you're not vulnerable to a branch attack or from the other legal perspective. And also, what makes it into a list is interesting if there is some amount of credible neutrality in terms of curation of the list. So usually the four rules for that is that you don't want to hardcode specific outcomes for sides of parties involved in the protocol. The execution of the curation protocol should be publicly verifiable and might as well be open source. It should be simple and it should not change too often so that the social layer can self-organize in case some changes actually are detrimental to the protocol. So, okay, who should curate the list? Could be, of course, centralized, could be a multi-sig, could be some arbitration DAO like Kleros. And I'll get a bit more into what Kleros does, but you could see it as the equivalent, the decentralized onion equivalent as a code. So just use Kleros. So at a high level, in the Kleros protocol, you've got an arbitrable side and an arbitrator side. This will be a list, and when there is a particular challenge, it would create a dispute with the court. And under the hood, the protocol is going to provide the decision and send it back on-chain to the arbitrable type, in this case, the list. So what does it mean I'll just dig a little bit deeper into what happens on the arbitrator side. So essentially, what the protocol does is crowdsourcing the answer to a question. So the question is going to be specified in a policy, which is specific to a list to this arbitrable side, and so anyone may actually stake into the court and become potentially a juror when there's a dispute. When there's a dispute, the protocol is going to randomly draw some jurors out of the stakers. Those jurors are going to vote. And then there is an appeal period, which means that the vote is actually specific to what we call a particular round. And if there is, anyone can actually found an appeal. So if you think that the outcome of the first round of voting is not correct, anyone can fund the next round of voting. And you can actually even crowdfund it. So if it's even too expensive to fund the next round, you could actually just organize with other people and sort of invest into a particular side of the dispute. And if ultimately that particular side of the dispute is going to win, you will actually make a profit. So ultimately the security of the arbitration mechanism comes from, well, different things, but one of them is that if you were maybe a malicious or lazy juror, if you are accepting a bribe, you never know if the current round of voting is going to be the ultimate one. There could always be an appeal, and it would possibly overhaul the current round, and in this case you would lose actually your stake. So yeah, I won't go into all these details, but there is a hierarchy of courts in clearance where the jurors can self-select into where they have the most expertise, which means that we don't actually need the protocol doesn't need to know if someone has the skills, because if you are not if you're not a Portuguese speaker, you are not going to stay into this particular court. Or if you don't have a technical background, you wouldn't stay into this court. So that was for the arbitrary side. Now looking at the curation side of things, let's say that we want to add a particular item to a list. This is the happy scenario where we have one honest submitter. Is going to provide the necessary information to add a particular item to a list with the deposit. And if no one disagrees, 5 days later, the item is considered as registered and is getting back its deposit. Now in the unhappy scenario, where during that 5 days period, someone comes and challenges it because, for whatever reason, maybe that person thinks that some info is incorrect, then it's going to escalate to the clearance court, and we are going to have the whole mechanism that I was talking about before, where some jurors are randomly drawn. They're going to look at the evidence, the context of the dispute, provide an answer. So those people are also incentivized to provide a good answer. And depending on the ruling, the item is accepted or rejected, and someone is getting either rewarded or punished because they're going to either win the other case, deposit or lose their deposit. So there's a whole, there could be different scenarios of honest or dishonest parties. So what can we actually do with Curate? The first list that we had was a list of ERC20 tokens. We also now have a list of contract tags. and the list of domains, which is actually used by Ledger. So what does it look like? This is a screenshot of this morning. We can see, if it's not too small, that a bunch of these tokens are pending. Some of them are registered. And there's a deposit of, I think it's 40 DAI on each item. So we consider that the incentive of 40 DAI is good enough to motivate an ecosystem of potential challengers to keep watching this registry, and that at least during those 5 days or 1 week, someone is going to be motivated, someone will have showed up to challenge a malicious entry to get that reward. So similarly, the address tag provides some tags on smart contracts and also the domain names. So we can see that it's a mapping between a particular website and a contract address for different chains. And I think probably on the ledger you would have a warning if you're maybe interacting with a non-official frontend. Then the output of these registries are now distributed through MetaMask Snap, which we call Scout. We've been part of the first batch of MetaMask Snap that were released when the snaps made it to the public release in the summer. So now you can actually install Claro Scout. It's been audited by Veridays. And if you're, when you're about to sign a transaction, you've got this extra tab that will tell you a tag corresponding to this particular address for context, the project, and whether the particular domain is matching the official domain of the frontend for this project. On the other hand, this morning I was trying to interact with the Tether token through Nosyscan, and in this case, the contract was known, but it's not really the official frontend for this token. Not really as one, but then you know that it's not very fair. So it gives you more insights. And so there's actually a lot of potential use cases for this in many different industries. We are currently looking at potentially helping with the first stage of filtering for grant applications. For example, the Optimism community, I think in the last season they had 1,000 projects applying for grants, and the people who are reviewing those applications are volunteers. So Claros is very good at scaling this for a very low cost, scaling this sort of subjective, answering subjective questions about whether a particular project is satisfying the requirement for a particular grant. And there are all sorts of other potential use cases, for example, e-commerce marketplaces where you could curate different categories of items listed by some merchants, content curation. And so this data is also distributed through a number of other frontends. The Uniswap frontend also, if you just try to swap some arbitrary token, it might not be included in the default list of Uniswap. But you can also decide to verify if it's part of the Claros curate tokens, and if it is, then you know that you probably don't have a copy-paste error. Okay, it's a bit later. So actually, this whole curation mechanism has been actually a recurring sort of mechanic that we have used. In this particular case, we are curating items for arbitrary list, but we have also built Proof of Humanity, which is the Sybil-resistant registry of humans, of analysis, which means that if the protocol works as intended, there cannot be, in this registry of addresses, there cannot be two addresses that belong to the same person, because the protocol will verify that there's only each human is only registered once. So it's very much curation in this case. And we also have used similar mechanics with the governor, which allows you to sort of curate a transaction payload, because when you're doing an off-chain vote on snapshot, let's say you want to change a parameter in your protocol from 5 to 10, and the community has agreed on doing that on snapshot, someone has to execute that transaction. So who is it going to be? You probably don't want to trust that someone has admin access and it's just going to execute that exactly like the community wanted, because it may not always happen. So an alternative to bridge between this off-chain voting and this on-chain transaction execution is that you can submit, just like in Curate, you can submit some transaction data, and after a number of days, if no one has challenged it, that means that most likely this transaction data is accurately reflecting the outcome of the vote on snapshot, and so it becomes executable. And if the governor is the only one with an admin role on your smart contracts, that means absolutely no one else can override it. And similarly, if you are using the Gnosis Safe ecosystem, you can do something similar with the Zodiac module, which I'm going to show. So you might have seen sometimes on Snapshot that there is this section where you can see the transaction data. And when the voting period finishes, there is this transaction data starts being curated for a number of days. And if no one challenges it, absolutely anyone can just execute it if they're willing to pay for gas. Of course, it's all nice and well, except that for all of this to work properly, you need good policies for registration and removal. So that's the part that needs to be designed properly. Yeah, these are some examples of things that we don't want. That's just a very specific example, but let's say if a particular project had different versions, we don't want someone submitting a tag saying old Uniswap contract. We would prefer V1 Uniswap contracts or V2, but not old. So on the front end, it would look something like this. Nowadays, we can actually specify the chain. So this registry now supports any chain. And when you've provided all the information and submitted it on chain, it's going to be waiting. And once it's registered, eventually, the Etherscan integration will show this tag. So Etherscan is automatically pulling the Kleros tag registry, and it's going to show you that this is an API 3 contract. And we are currently working also with BlockScale to do the same thing. If you're a developer, you're probably used to deploying your contract, verifying it on Etoscale, BlockScale, or Sourcify. If there's one thing that I hope you would think about the next time you deploy a contract is to submit it to Clearance Curate. I had very high hopes of actually implementing this for this talk, but this doesn't exist yet. Maybe in the future. Yeah, try it. We actually have an incentive program right now. So every month we distribute 300,000 PNK to all the submitters across the different registries. So yeah, take advantage of it. And that's it. Thank you. That's the question.
No? Okay, thank you, Jay.